Hello beautiful people, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Gochuku and this is officially my first video on YouTube. In this channel I look forward to us bringing you content ranging from health, beauty and everything in between. I will appreciate you hit the subscribe button, like and share our videos. I look forward to an amazing ride with you, so let's get right into the topic for today. So today we're going to be looking at how to calculate your safe period. But first, let's look at some basic terms. So the safe period is the infertile period when you're unlikely to get pregnant should sexual intercourse occur. In contrast, the unsafe period is the highly fertile period with the highest chance of getting pregnant following a sexual intercourse. So there are several reasons for calculating the safe and unsafe period. One of them could be to prevent unwanted pregnancy. It could also be used to plan pregnancy. In fact, having a good knowledge of the safe and unsafe period is useful in determining the sex of a baby. The male and the female sperm travel with different speed within the female genital tract. It's been said that the male travels faster and quicker within the female genital tract than the female sperm. Therefore, if you desire a male child, having sexual intercourse very close to the day of ovulation increases the likelihood of having a male baby, whereas having sexual intercourse further away from the day of ovulation increases the likelihood of having a female child. It could also be useful as a method of contraception. There are varying methods of contraception ranging from hormonal methods to barrier methods to natural method. This is a natural method of contraception, but it has some pitfalls. One, there needs to be discipline for this to work as a method of contraception because there needs to be abstinence on certain days of the menstrual cycle. So if discipline is not one of your strong points, then this needs not to be used as a method of contraception. So there are different phases of the woman's menstrual cycle, and this is divisible into three phases. The first is the pre-ovulatory, otherwise known as the follicular phase, the ovulatory phase, and the luteal phase. And don't worry, we'll be explaining these jargons in a minute. The pre-ovulatory phase, otherwise called the follicular phase, is the first phase of the menstrual cycle, and this phase usually starts on the first day of the menstrual bleeding. This phase marks the point where the eggs begin to mature under the influence of the follicle-stimulating hormone. It is pertinent to know that this part of the cycle varies, and by varies I mean it is always changing. So even in the same women and even between women, it is always changing depending on the menstrual cycle per month. So if the cycle length is 23 days in the first month and is about 25 days in the second month, those phase of the menstrual cycle would vary. It is not always constant, and it's pertinent to understand it because as we progress, we're going to see a part of the menstrual cycle that is always constant regardless of the cycle length of a woman, and even between women it is always constant. So understanding this would help us to understand how to safely calculate the safe period. The ovulatory phase marks the end of the pre-ovulatory phase, another phase where the egg is released from the ovary into the fallopian tubes. The eggs travel down the fallopian tubes where it is fertilized by a sperm, and the product of conceptus travels down to the uterus where it is implanted. However, in the absence of a sperm, the egg lasts for about 24 hours within the female genital tract and is degraded. So the luteal phase is the last phase of the menstrual cycle and is a phase where the body begins to prepare in anticipation for pregnancy. Usually after ovulation, the casing of the egg within the ovary, known as the follicle, transforms into a structure called the corpus luteum. The primary function of the corpus luteum is to secrete hormones that maintain pregnancy until placenta is formed. However, in the absence of pregnancy, this structure is degraded by the day 14. And like I said earlier, there is a part of the menstrual cycle that is always constant regardless of the cycle length. So from woman to woman and the same individual, it is always constant, and that phase of the menstrual cycle is the luteal phase, and that is primarily because the corpus luteum lasts for 14 days regardless of the cycle length of a woman. So after 14 days, if there is no pregnancy to sustain it, it is degraded, and this makes this phase the most constant phase of the menstrual cycle. To safely calculate the safe period, there are pertinent points to note. 1. The cycle starts on the first day of the menstrual bleeding. 2. The pre-ovulatory phase varies depending on the cycle length. It could be anywhere between 7 to 21 days. 3. The sperm lasts for about 5 days within the female reproductive tract and dies afterwards. 4. To safely calculate your safe period, you need to have an idea on your cycle length. And lastly, the egg lasts for about 24 hours in the fallopian tube and dies if not fertilized. Enjoying it so far? Please show some love by hitting that subscribe button. Also like and comment and share our videos. So let's get down to calculating the safe period. So we're going to be using a calendar method and assuming a 28-day cycle. So since the sperm lasts for about 5 days in the genital tract and the egg lasts for about 24 hours after the ovulation, so it is safe to say that the unsafe period is 5 days before ovulation and 2 days after, and the rest of the days after this is a safe period. So I'll be illustrating this in a minute. So in a 28-day cycle, ovulation occurs on day 14. So the unsafe period will be 5 days before day 14 and 2 days after. And these are illustrated. They are the marked regions. So between day 9 and day 16 marks the unsafe period of the menstrual cycle, where there is a likelihood of getting pregnant following a sexual intercourse. However, every other days outside this marks the safe period of a menstrual cycle in a 28-day cycle. So what about longer and shorter cycle lengths? So remember we said earlier that the luteal phase is a constant part of the menstrual cycle. It is 14 days regardless of the cycle length in the same woman and even between women. So having said that, to be able to understand or know the day of ovulation, you need to have an idea on your cycle length, and all you need to do is to subtract 14 days from your cycle length, and that gives you your day of ovulation. So your unsafe periods would be the 5 days before that day of ovulation and 2 days after. So I'll be illustrating this using a 35-day cycle in a minute. So in a 35-day cycle, ovulation should occur on day 21. So the unsafe period will be 5 days before day 21 and 2 days after, and these are illustrated. They are the marked regions. So between day 16 and day 23 are the unsafe period in a 35-day cycle. Therefore, between day 16 and day 23 are the unsafe period, where you have a likelihood of getting pregnant, whereas every other days outside this marks the safe period of the menstrual cycle. So having discussed all that, there are, however, markers and indicators of ovulation. So we're looking at them one after the other. So the first one is the thinning of the cervical mucus. Usually the opening into the uterus is guarded by the cervical plug, and this is the body's mechanism to protect the uterus from ascending infection. However, getting close to the day of ovulation, because the body is anticipating pregnancy, it begins to wear out that cervical mucus under the influence of the luteinizing hormone. So this cervical plug begins to melt down and is passed out from the vagina as a vaginal secretion that is very slimy and stretchy. It's typically described as having an egg white color and consistency. So once you're able to see this during your menstrual cycle and you see a vaginal secretion that is very stretchy, such that between the fingers it stretches out just like it's shown illustrated, you will know that ovulation is around the corner. Also very close to the ovulation, there is increase in the basal body temperature, and this is all under the influence of the hormones that are released very close to the ovulation. This may not really be appreciated much, especially if you're in a very hot climate region like Nigeria, but then in cooler regions you'll be able to detect that there's a fluctuating body temperature where it's actually raised very close to ovulation. But then as we progress, we'll see more definitive markers of ovulation. On the day of ovulation, there's usually a mild abdominal cramping, and this is due to the release of the egg from the ovary. Typically, this will give a mild cramping pain that some might not really appreciate or assume to be something else, but this usually occurs because the egg ruptures into the fallopian tubes. There's also an increased sexual drive, and this is all Mother Nature trying to make sure that there's sperm to fertilize the egg following ovulation. Also, under the influence of the hormones that are released very close to ovulation, the breast becomes quite engorged, heavy and painful, and this is noticed by nearly every woman very close to ovulation. There's also a heightened sense of smell, so the individual is able to pick up the minuteness of odor, just typical to what you see during pregnancy. So anything around them could easily be perceived, even when no other person can perceive them. The ovulation kit is a more definitive way to mark ovulation, and the idea of the science behind this is the ability to detect the levels of hormones that are increased very close to ovulation. Usually few hours to ovulation, there is a surge in the luteinizing hormone, and this surge is what allows the egg to be released from the ovary into the fallopian tube. So for those that desire to know the safe and unsafe period as a way of planning pregnancy, this can help to know when to have intercourse, because it can help you to understand and know the point that there is a surge, and having intercourse at that point can increase the chance of getting pregnant. I hope this was quite helpful. If it was, please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. Also, do not forget to subscribe to our channel, comment and like our videos. And until next time, see you.